I'm 62 years old and I'm recording this from a $10 a night room in Manila. No air conditioning. A ceiling fan that rattles so hard I check every night to make sure the bolts are still in. Outside my window there's a karaoke bar that doesn't stop until 2 in the morning. I brought $350,000 to this country. 30 years of work. 30 years of logistics meetings and 12-hour days and eating lunch at my desk in Columbus, Ohio. And right now, I have less than 400 pesos in my wallet. That's about $7 American. Joy took my savings. Joy took my retirement house. Joy took 3 years of my life, and then she changed the locks on my own front door while I was on a flight back from Manila. Here is the truth that every man over 60 dreaming about the Philippines needs to hear before they book a flight. The woman who is going to take everything from you is not going to look like a threat. She is going to look like everything you ever wanted. Quiet, loving, traditional, devoted to family and to God. She is going to make you feel young again and wanted again and alive in a way you haven't felt in decades. And that feeling is going to cost you everything you have. If you are a man over 60 thinking about retiring in the Philippines or starting a relationship with a young Filipina woman, subscribe to this channel right now. Not because I want the views, because what I am about to walk you through could be the difference between a peaceful retirement and dying broke and alone in a country where nobody knows your name. I was 59 when I started seriously planning to leave the United States. 30 years as a logistics supervisor in Columbus, middle management, decent salary, good enough retirement account. But decent and good enough started to feel unbearable around my 58th birthday. My 2 kids were grown and in different states. My house was too quiet. The winters were brutal. My coworkers were all 20 years younger than me and had no idea what to talk to me about. And I'm going to be honest with you the way I wish someone had been honest with me. I was lonely in a way that was starting to affect everything. My sleep, my health, my motivation to get out of bed on a Saturday morning. I started watching videos about expat retirement. Southeast Asia kept coming up. Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines. I kept coming back to the Philippines. English was widely spoken. The cost of living was a fraction of Ohio. The culture was warm and family-centered. And the women, every video, every forum, every expat blog kept emphasizing the same thing. Filipino women are traditional, loyal. They care for their men. They don't chase money and status the way Western women have been conditioned to. They want a good, stable man who treats them right. I told myself I was being rational and practical. But honestly, I was a lonely man in his late 50s who wanted to feel something again. And I was about to pay $350,000 to learn what that kind of desperation costs. I met Joy on an international dating site about 9 months before I moved. Her profile photo was unassuming. A modest floral blouse, no heavy makeup, a small church in the background. She listed her hobbies as attending mass, cooking for family, and gardening. She was 26. I was 61. I have heard every comment there is about that age gap, and I understand all of them now, believe me. But at the time, our video calls felt genuine in a way that embarrassed me. They felt so good. She listened. She asked real questions about my life, my job, my kids. She told me about her family in Mindanao, her parents, her younger siblings she helped support. She talked about faith and values and what a real relationship meant to her. She said she had been hurt by Filipino men who cheated and lied, and she wanted something honest and stable. She said she believed God had a reason for putting us in each other's paths. Every single word was a perfectly placed hook in a perfectly constructed trap, and I walked straight into it with my eyes wide open and my savings account fully loaded. I flew to Manila in October of 2022. Joy met me at the international terminal in a simple dress, no makeup, holding a hand-lettered sign with my name on it. I felt something in my chest I hadn't felt in a very long time. We spent 2 incredible weeks sightseeing and eating local food, and talking for hours at night on the balcony of a small Airbnb in Makati. She cooked adobo and sinigang, and laughed when I ate too much rice. She went to Sunday Mass and held my hand when we walked. She said I made her feel safe. I was 61 years old, and a 26-year-old woman was telling me I made her feel safe. And I wanted so badly for that to be true that I never once stopped to ask why it was true. What I know now with absolute certainty is that Joy had been doing this for years before I arrived. I was not her first, I was just her most profitable. The first emergency arrived 6 weeks after I moved to Cebu. I had committed to the Philippines by then, gave up my apartment in Columbus, put my furniture in storage, redirected my mail. We were talking seriously about buying land and building a house together. Joy had a cousin who was a contractor. She had ideas for the garden and the layout. I felt like I was actually building something, a real life, a real future for the first time in years. Then one Tuesday morning, Joy called me in tears. Her mother in Mindanao had developed a serious bacterial infection. The provincial hospital needed payment up front before they would start IV antibiotics. 30,000 pesos, $540. I sent it within the hour, and I felt good about it. I felt like a man taking care of his family. Her mother recovered quickly. About 10 weeks later, a typhoon swept through the province. The family house had significant roof damage. Joy sent me a photo of the collapsed corrugated iron. The contractor her cousin knew had given a quote, 185,000 pesos, around $3,300. I wired it. Then her younger brother needed a semester's tuition to continue his nursing program, or he would be dropped from the roster. 60,000 pesos, sent. 2 months after that, Joy's aunt in Davao was diagnosed with a kidney condition requiring dialysis. The hospital needed a deposit before they would schedule treatment. 190,000 pesos. I hesitated on that one. Not because the amount was too much. I'd already moved past thinking in terms of amounts, but because of a feeling, a small, quiet unease that I pushed down immediately because Joy was sleeping in the next room, and she trusted me, and what kind of man refuses dialysis for a sick woman? I remember sitting on the edge of the bed at 2 in the morning in the small Cebu apartment we shared, doing mental math on my phone while Joy slept. The total was already over $12,000 in about 7 months. I told myself it was the culture, that this was family life in a developing country, that any real partner would do the same. I told myself the amounts were still small relative to what I had. I convinced myself that this financial generosity was the price of a real relationship with someone from a different economic world, and that any man who wasn't willing to pay that price didn't deserve the warmth and devotion he was getting in return. What I know now is that Joy was not asleep. She was awake in that room, phone in hand, updating her real partner about the balance in my account and planning the next emergency on their shared list. Every crisis had been mapped out before I ever landed in Manila. The sick aunt, the typhoon roof, the tuition. The timing between each one was calculated to give me just enough breathing room to feel like the bleeding had stopped before it started again. She understood loneliness. She understood ego. She understood exactly what a man in his 60s, far from home and desperate to be needed, would and would not question. The relationship got physically warmer as the money moved. Compliments came more frequently. Public affection increased. Every time I showed hesitation, there was a burst of tenderness that reset my doubts. I now understand that tactic clearly. When a man's doubts start rising, give him a reward. Condition him to associate generosity with love. I was 61 years old, and I was being trained like a dog. and I was grateful for every moment of it. Joy brought up the house idea more seriously around month 9. Building in her home province in Mindanao, she said. Her family was there. Land was cheaper. Her cousin, the contractor, could give us a discount. I had done enough research to know that as a foreign national, I legally could not own land in the Philippines. I had read the forums. I had seen the warnings. But Joy had an answer for everything. We would put it in her name temporarily, just until the paperwork for a longer arrangement was sorted out. Other expats did it this way, she said. It was completely normal. Just a practical step while we built our life together. I trusted her. I had sent her family thousands of dollars over 9 months, and she had never once given me a reason not to trust her. So I wired $60,000 to a Philippine account in her name and watched a house get built on land that I would never legally own. I visited during construction twice. The second visit, I stood on the covered porch overlooking a rice field, and I felt more settled than I had in years. It was simple and clean, and it was mine, or it felt like mine. We talked about the garden we would plant, about the dog we would get, about what the spare room might eventually be used for. I was a 61-year-old man who had rebuilt his entire life around a lie, and standing on that porch, I was genuinely, completely happy. Then things changed in ways I kept explaining away. Joy began visiting family in a neighboring town, 3-4 days at a time. Her messages got shorter. She was tired. She was helping her Lola. She would go quiet for 12 hours and then resurface with a burst of warmth that settled me just long enough for the distance to return. After about 4 months of this cycle, something in me finally shifted. Not dramatically, just a quiet decision. I called my bank and arranged for my account to appear financially devastated. I told Joy on a video call that a logistics investment I'd made back in Ohio had collapsed. I wasn't bankrupt, but I was in serious trouble. I needed to stop all outgoing transfers for the foreseeable future. I watched her face carefully on that call. She was sympathetic. She said all the right things. She told me we would get through it together. She maintained that performance for 47 hours. Then the call stopped. Her messages became one word. Within 2 weeks, she told me the relationship was too stressful, that she needed to focus on her family and her own well-being. She blocked me on the original dating platform. When I flew to Mindanao and showed up at the house, my $60,000 house, her male cousin met me at the gate. He spoke calmly and without apology. Joy was not there. I was not welcome. I should leave. I stood in the afternoon heat in my faded button-down shirt, staring at the porch I had been so proud of, and I understood in that single moment with total clarity that this had never been a relationship. It had been a job. I was the account. The house was the severance package, and she had planned every detail of my removal long before the locks were ever changed. That was 14 months ago. I am still in the Philippines because, to be honest with you, I'm not sure where else I would go. My Social Security check covers the room and one decent meal a day and not much else. I have a small emergency reserve in a U.S. account that I am afraid to touch because once it's gone, it is gone. I spent time consulting a Filipino attorney about the house. He was professional and honest with me. Because the deed is in Joy's name and because there is no formal contract between us, I have very limited legal recourse under Philippine property law. He had heard this story before. He told me as much without saying it directly. I want to be precise with you about something because I think the vague version of this warning doesn't actually help anyone. The emergencies Joy used were not random. They were calibrated. A sick family member is not something you question without feeling like a monster. A natural disaster is not something you investigate without looking cheap. Tuition for a sibling feels like an investment in the family you're joining, And a house, a physical structure on physical land, feels like proof that the whole thing is real. Every piece of this was designed to feel undeniable. And the most dangerous element was not Joy herself. It was me, my loneliness, my ego, my need to believe that a 26-year-old woman genuinely loved me for who I was and not what I carried in my bank account. That need made me stupid in a way that 30 years of working with numbers and logistics systems should have protected me from. It did not protect me at all. If you are thinking about the Philippines, I am not here to tell you to stay home. I know men who live here happily and have built real lives, but they moved with their eyes open. They kept their finances absolutely separate. They watched for patterns, not just moments. They never put property in another person's name. They took years to trust, not weeks. They did not let the hunger of loneliness override the logic that had gotten them through their entire working lives. If you are in a relationship with a Filipina woman right now, and the family emergencies have started, and the timing between them seems a little too convenient, and the warmth you receive spikes every time you hesitate, I need you to hear me clearly. That is not love adjusting to the stresses of a relationship. That is a system operating exactly as it was designed to. You are not the exception. You are the target. Please, before you send another dollar, before you sign anything, before you put 1 peso of your retirement into any asset in anyone else's name, stop. Think. Subscribe to this channel and come back for the next video, because I have more to tell you, and none of it is comfortable, and all of it is true. I'm not going anywhere. I have got nowhere else to be.